have seen them. Probably Alex O'Connor did one. And various other people, I'm sure, are doing it, talking to ChatGPT, trying to talk it into whether or not God exists. Some success, some not so successful. The problem right now is that it is based on what's on the internet, right? It's learning based on the internet. So it's going to pick up a lot of God belief just based on people saying it. So I don't know how they filter out what is considered to be good information versus bad information. I'm sure that's something they're working on. I think 10 years from now, they will probably get some of that bad information filtered out, which is to say just opinions without basis. And particularly, they'll come to logical conclusions without fallacies on the arguments for God. Anyways, I want to make a quick mention. A couple nights ago. So, sorry. I should write this stuff down. So tonight, Friday night, we're close to 1,800. So we're going for 1,800 followers tonight. So I just need 18 to get there. So that's our goal for tonight. Help me get there. And what will I do? I don't know what I'll do. I'll throw a hat on or something. I'll do one of those weird graphics. Turn my face into a chipmunk or some weird thing. So hit me up when we get to 1,800. There's a little bit of graphic overlay, so it's hard for me to see. But when we get to 1,800, somebody send me a comment or something, and we'll do a little celebration, a little dance, something. I don't know, something silly. Okay, so answering the other question from the other night, I've got an update to add information and correct myself a little bit. Let me bring this up. This is not thrilling to look at, but let's see. I need to be in my TikTok folder. Okay. So the question came up the other night. 'Cause I've been saying this for a bit, that during COVID, there were more, well, let's do this first, that during COVID, there were more deaths amongst Republicans than there were amongst Democrats. And that's typically, you would think, because of them getting upset about not wanting to put public demands on them. Don't tell us what to do. Don't tell us we have to get shots. Some of the fear-based stuff of we don't trust shots, all those types of things. And then, I mean, early on, there was the don't tell us we have to shut down our churches, those types of things. And my recollection has been that at the peak of the pandemic, that we were losing Republicans to Democrats on a 3-to-1 basis. So I went to find that out because the guy said he didn't believe me. Without spending 5 days on this of research, I did look up some stuff. Basically, it's true, but not to that degree. So I don't honestly remember where I got that 3-to-1. Maybe I was looking at the numbers of deaths, various days or something, because I was following that pretty closely for a while. But to get more accurate on it, this is what I found. There's two major studies that got a lot of press. Here's one of them. Was political party affiliation a risk factor associated with excess mortality during COVID-19? Now, this one is based on 2 states, Florida and Ohio. And if you see on the lower right, there was a slightly higher risk. Let's see, read the small stuff here. Well, basically just pay attention to the underline in red. Feel free to take a screenshot and read it in more detail. There wasn't much difference between Democrats and Republicans until the vaccine came out. That's when it really split. So on this particular study, the excess death rates among Republicans was 43% higher than Democrat voters. This one got a lot of attention, a lot of press at the time. But obviously, I had misremembered the 3 times thing. So who knows where I got that from? Pretty confident I got it from somewhere, but maybe that was like I said, I'm guessing it was like death numbers or something. more. Who knows? But let's just go with what we have accurately documented, because this is what I always tell people to do, is to go with what information we have. So here's another one that, and oh shoot, it cut off at the very top there. Oh, well, no, you can see the authors at the bottom there. This one's from Yale. And this showed basically the same thing. And now we're just looking at the top half here. We'll talk about the chart on the bottom in a second. We're at substantially higher death rates for registered Republicans when compared to registered with Democrats. And this, again, it showed up after the vaccine was available. So the vaccination was available. People, more so than Republicans, more than Democrats, did not want to get the vaccine. And they found 153% of the Democrat excessive death rate. So that is, if I read that right, I don't think that's, 100% greater. I'm a little puzzled on the stats without going into more detail, but it doesn't really matter. The point is made. If it's like 100% higher, that means it's 100% is the same, or it's actually twice as high. I think I'm going to interpret this as twice as high, or as not twice as high. So since the other one's at 43, we can look at the 153 and call this one 53. So basically there was like about a 50% increase if you throw the two studies together. This one was national. So this one is a better thing, better to go by than just those two states. Okay. Now, interestingly, the guy the other night said something that he heard, and I'm sure he heard it from sort of the counter argument of the time, which is that the inner cities had higher rates of COVID, which is to say the Democrats, right? Because that's the more Democrat population in the inner cities, the urban centers, and then the rural cities were later. If you remember, the inner cities got hit really bad first, especially New York City, which went up to like 200,000 plus, where there was like 20,000 in the rest of the country. And there was a little bit of, we knew it was going to get to the countryside, if you will, soon enough. And when it did, it just kind of took off. So, because they weren't really prepared for it. You wouldn't have expected it to spread so fast. When it did, finally, it was a big delay because there's not as much communication between urban and rural, right? But when it did, they really weren't prepared for it. So let's look at that lower chart. So 2020 on the left, 2021 on the right. So 2021, we have the vaccine. 2020, we do not. So let's just look at the left two. The blue is the Dems, the red is the Republicans. And see the dark center line in the middle of the here I can point right there on the Dems, and then right there on the Republicans. Look at the difference in the two. It's hard to point. Okay, they're not that far apart. But certainly there are a lot more Dem cases. And this comes largely from it going through the inner cities first, right? Where there were population centers, easier to spread disease. New York City, you remember again, was like way out of whack with the rest of the country. Early cases and stuff. So this really skews this highly to the Dems. But then again, the Republicans were not that much, a little bit higher, but not that much, at least as a mean. Now go to the right. When we have the vaccine, you got a couple things going here. Number one, the cities have now declined because it's sort of wiped through there already to a large degree, even though we were still getting variants. And people were getting vaccinated in the cities. They were more motivated, of course, to do that because they had been hit so hard. And on the right, you've got the Republicans not getting their shots enough, and at this point, the virus is being more rural. So here again, we have a mixed bag in the exact opposite direction as the first half. On the Republican side, notice again the difference between this center line and this center line. That gap is much bigger than this gap over here. Small difference, big difference. But because we've already somewhat burned out the inner cities, this is a little bit artificially low. And then again, this is artificially high because of the vaccine problem. So it's a combination of factors. So it does come out to that roughly 50% higher among the Republicans. But, you know, you want to moderate it, if you will, by those demographic and area factors. Still, the bottom line is, from an evolutionary perspective, you are more survivable if you were a Democrat, which means if you're no longer here, you had a susceptibility to disbelief, to being in groups that gave you some false ideas that were not beneficial. And as a result of that, it's going to be affecting this election because we have X number of fewer voters on the right, particularly the older voters. All right, that's a lot of detail, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But I just wanted to point out that the point was correct, but my numbers were off. So I just corrected my numbers there, and we're back in reality here. Yeah. So I mean, you know. Data is important, and also the interpreting of data is important. And if you see a reason to call somebody out, call them out. You know, but what I don't want to do is spend time in a situation where we both have some doubt and go back and forth. I'm right. You know, so pull out the data, look at it, and then have your discussions. Because, you know, anyways. So as usual, feel free to talk about this or anything else that's on your mind. That is a suggestion if you can't think of anything, or if there's nothing else that you really want to talk about. If you want to talk about the election, we can do that a little bit. I'm not big into politics, but I mean, I am actually, but it's not most of what I want to do on this channel, I should say. I've noticed that that Fox was kind of evading discussion of the debate, so that kind of shows you that things didn't come that way, or things didn't look good for them. So JFF, ChatGPT already came to that conclusion. Yeah, like I said, I've seen both answers of people having discussions with ChatGPT. I've seen two, well, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw two people say they've talked ChatGPT into believing in God. So, but like I say, at this point, so those two are inconclusive when you have competing answers. But like I say, at this point, understand that ChatGPTs and AIs are being trained on what's existing, and if you have existing false information out there, that's going to have to be weeded out in time. And then it's going to do its own self-repetition. I suspect that it's going to shift, and this is 10 years ahead, so who knows. But I suspect it's going to shift into telling us a lot more about the Bible says, therefore this is what many people believe. And then when it gets to the logical arguments, it's going to find them all highly questioned. Because that's what the logic actually does when you're not biasing your answer. AI will come to a conclusion that you cannot agree, that you cannot argue with someone's imaginations. Yeah, this is true. I was amused by Alex O'Connor's discussion because he kept pointing out illogical or logic mistakes that the thing was making out, that the software was making, and just this sheer eternal patience that they have programmed these thing with was kind of to the point of ridiculousness at some point, because it was just like, I see how you can get to there, Alex, and and it kept doing this very polite. It wouldn't get upset at all, of course, because they've trained it not to always respond in a polite and calm manner. But it was doing a little bit of circling on the logic, so that was weird. All right, let's go back behind. What does it say behind my head? Always duck down when I'm getting started. This is a long one. Granted, I usually don't go 4 lines, so I can get my head in the screen a little more. All right, let's see who's behind the scenes and invite some people up. Uncle Jesse, you get the first invitation. And, you're coming up, so let's do you first. Tick, 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 tock, tock, tock.
Hello.
Hey, Uncle Jesse, you've got 1 bar, so we'll see how this goes. Sounds like you're outside. Okay. I hear crickets. See if I can move around and get the signal.
Yeah. Is there a better connection now?
Yeah. The bar logo went away, so it looks a little better. So, what state are you in? That I'm hearing these yard insects.
I'm in the South.
In the South?
In Mississippi.
How are the cicadas for you this year?
Crazy, man. Wow, they're all over the place. But nature is a fascinating thing. It does some interesting things.
We took a drive to relatives in South Carolina in like April, so it was a little bit before the cicadas, but they were out. And boy, you just big old things. I didn't realize they were quite as large as they were. So
yeah.
But this is like the worst year ever, so it'll be better down the road. But noisy suckers.
I like it. It's calming to me. It's peaceful.
It is, but I like it. Like if I could take the volume down a bit. I'm used to crickets.
You get used to it. When you get used to it, then you don't even hear them.
Yeah, that's true. So what's on your mind?
I was just, like I said in the comments, that atheism has no metaphysical basis, so it's not philosophically tenable. And inherent within it is a logical contradiction.
What do you mean by metaphysical?
Do you understand? Do you know metaphysics? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think so, but I mean, people seem to have varied definitions, so I usually get your definition.
Yeah. Well, I would say the metaphysics, the true metaphysics deals with subtlety, and it's hard to lead up to with words, and it's difficult to express in a communication, and it's hard to bring out when you're having a debate. But metaphysics just basically deals with reality and the nature of reality. What's real, what's true. But and I know within certain, you can argue well, if you believe in a religion, which religion is the right religion, and all of them have exclusive truth claims, and they cancel each other out. So that makes belief in God untenable. But I don't believe that. I'm kind of a perennialist, but I understand the problems with that logically. But I still stand on that.
I don't know the word perennialist. What does that mean?
Just like that, that the truth claims within different religions are all true within. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them are true within the framework of their religion.
Yeah.
But they're true. Different religions have truth claims that are true and can be proved metaphysically. But it's just that, that because it seems like because they make exclusive truth claims that they cancel each other out, but that's not really the case. That's all I'm saying.
They could all be wrong, or one could be right. So it's not necessarily that they cancel. And of course, like you said, and others have said something similar, that they believe that many religions are manifestations of the same one, just sort of different interpretations
of the same
presented. Yeah, some people believe that. So as far as I'm concerned, metaphysics is not something that proves anything. Because metaphysics is either the nature of the nature of something, right? The nature of being,
the nature of reality.
So
it proves itself if you understand. I think a lot of people have a problem grasping metaphysics, especially like when you deal with the Neoplatonists or Aristotle. When you get into reading it and studying it, it can be confusing. But really, all a person really needs to just know from the get-go is that Aristotle and the Neoplatonists were monists, and then certain Christian theologians were dualists.
Yeah.
And but then when you go to Eastern religions, they argue for non-dualism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there can be some debates about metaphysics within religions, but you ultimately have to do a metaphysics to make your truth claims stand. And I think that good.
Why do we need metaphysics if we have physics?
Metaphysics proves physics.
Metaphysics doesn't prove physics. Because metaphysics is also supposed to be.
Let me finish. Don't talk over me, please. I'll let you talk.
Go ahead.
Metaphysics. You take your metaphysical assumptions with you when you do science.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do. Because if you're an atheist, then you're going to apply your atheist worldview to your science conclusions. Whereas you're a theist, you're going to bring your theism to your conclusions in science. So you start with first principles and axioms that can't be proven or disproven for whatever position you take.
The word atheist does not mean it's a worldview. That's just one little thing. It's like it's like saying that if someone doesn't believe in leprechauns, that's a worldview. That's just one small piece of information. That's not enough to define a worldview. It can be within a larger worldview of maybe humanism or something like that, or naturalism, whatever. We can throw enough stuff together to generate a worldview. But atheism itself is not enough to be a worldview. So I'll tell you, I deny that part of it, or I disagree with that part of it, I should say.
Okay. I'll give you that.
But the other point I was trying to make is that metaphysics, from when Aristotle was trying to define it, was just like when he wrote several books about natural philosophy, right? Philosophy related to nature, trying to explain natural things. Metaphysics was the beyond physics. It was the stuff that was left over that he couldn't explain with physics, right? With the natural world. So any concepts that he couldn't explain, he would put into that category. So the problem with that is, that's fine. That makes actually sense. But the problem is that doesn't mean that there's anything actually there that is not physical, or that is perhaps is aphysical or supernatural or whatever, but that we actually have access to it. So it seems to me that metaphysics is only a way of, much like philosophy sometimes, of asking questions but not determining answers. So that's why when you say that metaphysics is a way of proving reality, or everything has to have a metaphysical element to it, that part of it sounds incorrect to me.
I understand, but if those who know, you have to have a metaphysics for your philosophy to stand.
Why?
You know what I'm saying? It does that, and the ideas that endure all have a metaphysics. The ideas that endure, though, the ones that are just passing trends and fads, they don't endure because they haven't dealt with the deeper questions about reality and the nature of reality.
Well, what do you think? What do you think philosophy is? How do you define philosophy?
Well, philosopher is a lover of wisdom, and a philosopher is a seeker of wisdom. I wouldn't necessarily equate a philosopher with a sage, but a philosopher can be a sage.
Sure. I define it as using logic. Logic seems to be the tool of philosophy. Logic and language, I guess, right? You're allowed to think anything, right? You're allowed to think. You're allowed to speculate. That's what you do in philosophy. It's thinking to a simplistic degree. And then you apply your logic to it to make sure you're not making any mistake, so that A doesn't equal B when one is round and one is square, kind of a thing. So to me, philosophy is this like wonderfully open field where you can ask anything, but it can be used to generate hypotheses about things, but usually not answers.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please do.
Are you a nihilist?
No. Well, I don't think that I don't see there's any purpose in life. So maybe you'd want to call that a nihilist.
Yeah. How long have you been an atheist?
About 10 years now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see inherent purpose in the universe. I just see physics and chemistry and functionality.
Well, I don't know if there's purpose necessarily inherent within existence, but I do believe there's meaning inherent within existence.
What's the difference between those two words? See,
I think
I have a hard time.
I think purpose, because of the way that language perpetuates itself within our culture and society, when people hear purpose, they automatically think in terms of personal achievements, personal success, and I don't think you necessarily have to have some kind of capitalistic, materialistic world aspirations to have meaning in your life. You know what I'm saying? You can be, and that's some of the aim of a lot of philosophers. I think that's the difference between ancient philosophers and modern ones. Ancient philosophers sought to live their philosophy. They weren't so much just academics and just stuffy collars in a university. You know what I'm saying? They strove to live what they were talking about. So yeah,
that's a very good point. They kind of had this thing where I don't know if you call it virtue philosophy, where there was like
virtue ethics.
There you go, where they would like define a certain proper way of life and then try to live in that way, kind of thing.
Yeah, that was the whole aim of philosophy in the beginning, to seek out wisdom and what was the meaning of the good life.
Yeah, but it has shifted, right? That's why natural philosophy is, like I say, the attempt to explain things. Why does this happen? Why does that happen? Why is that white dot in the sky moving where the other one isn't, right? And then eventually that becomes science when we start to add experimentation and instrumentation and testing to that.
Yes, a lot of science was born from philosophy. That's what the whole Enlightenment era was about. Empiricism and a move away from what they deemed superstition. So and
do you think that was a good thing?
No, because the human need we need to believe in some myth, and myths order society and they order cultures. You need a myth.
You need a myth. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Every civilization has had its myths. Every civilization that has endured had its myths. Yeah. We need myths. We need to believe. We need to have some idea of something transcendent. Do
you think there's any harm that comes from believing in myth? Assuming that a myth is, let's just take Zeus or something. Assuming that a particular myth is factually incorrect, you think there could be harm in?
Yeah. Myths can harm, but non-belief is in a term of myth, and it causes a kind of harm too. You know, because like, I'll give you an example, like Richard Dawkins, right? He's a famous atheist.
Yeah.
So he went all around England. He argued against Christianity, against religion. So he instilled a lot of atheistic belief in a lot of people within that society.
Yeah.
And so people they cast off their beliefs. They gave up on religion, so totally subscribed to secularism. Then another culture, then Muslims moved in. People from the Middle East moved to Europe, and they taken over. You know what I mean? Because they have and people are coming to them wanting to believe in what they believe in, because we all have we have this innate desire within us to want to believe in something, and it's almost like some people, you can deny that impulse, and after you deny it so long, then it goes away, I think. But I think sometimes deep down, just innate within us, we want to believe in something, or have some meaning to. We want to give some meaning to our lives through believing in something that's beyond just the physical.
I'm struck by the phrase "cast off" because you said that atheists cast off their religion to become atheists. Paraphrasing your exact phrase, but does it seem to you that atheism is just another form of religion of many options?
Yeah, because
really?
But I wouldn't say atheism is more of a modern phenomenon in the West, but there have been some movements of atheism even in the East in the past. So I wouldn't say that it's totally against us to deny God, because it has happened in other cultures with other people.
What are you referring to in other? How far past?
Well, like in India, Hinduism was prominent, but within the 6 schools of traditional Hinduism, there was a school, I think it was called Satyagraha or something like that, Sakya. But they were an atheistic kind of subset of. They had an atheistic philosophy, and they believed in a kind of materialism.
I actually didn't even know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I have to go look that up and learn something there. Thank you.
Yeah, I might be wrong about the name of it, but within the 6 schools of Hinduism, one of them was atheist, but it died out a long time ago. But yeah.
So the way I see atheism, I don't see it as a religion at all. I see that it is basically a conclusion because it conforms with what's real. So as we learn different things, like, the earth was not created, it came together over billions of years and all those types of things that we used to have nothing but supernatural explanations for, or we possibly just didn't know and didn't admit it. Atheism was just the conclusion. The example I like to throw out a lot is that, we used to think that equate Thor and thunder, right? And once you know how weather and thunder is formed, you don't need the deity explanation anymore. So it's not like atheism becomes a religious alternative. It just becomes a small conclusion based on what seems to be there.
Yeah.
So I don't see it as just sort of like a new religion, postmodern or whatever you want to call it, that sort of swept through. It just equates with reality. So I think that in time, it's going to be inevitable that religion, that atheism just becomes more dominant.
Yeah.
Having said that, you're right about Islam. The Islam thing is interesting because I don't see Islam coming in and then replacing atheism. I see it replacing, to whatever degree it comes in and does its thing by force. Obviously, that could be a problem. But it's not that you'd turn from atheism to Islam. We're seeing some shift from Christianity to Islam, but only on a global scale. That's a good question. I know Islam is the fastest growing religion on a global scale, and it's going to become the dominant one by about 2060 or so. I think it's paced currently. Yeah, but I don't know what it's replacing. If so,
probably just the Judeo-Christian ethos. But and then we have a lot of other cultures that coming in. You have a lot of other immigrants and cultures coming in, and there's a lot of information that you have access to now about these religions, where you can learn so much about them and get in depth with them. So those ideas proliferate as more people become exposed to them. Then people have different ideas, and then like in the West, we have Christianity, but we have the dominant Christianity is Protestantism, which isn't that theologically sound. It's it's kind of wonky theologically, and the more doctrinally sound of the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox. And I believe a lot of Christians are realizing that they're kind of discarding Protestantism, but
well, but they're not throwing away the Bible.
No, they're not throwing away the Bible. But you know what I'm saying? With Protestantism, they kind of leave. They kind of have discarded the ancient forms of Christianity. They kind of forgotten them, and more like the Eastern Orthodox attempts to preserve those more ancient forms of Christianity and the deep liturgy and traditions that are behind them. Because a lot of the traditions and the liturgy and the theology has deep meaning. But you know what I'm saying? You just have to do a lot of work to get a good understanding of it. And people are unwilling to do that kind of study for their religion. But I think in this day and age, if you're going to believe in something, you got to understand what you believe and know why you believe it. You know what I mean?
I think that's fair. That sounds fair. I know a guy who became Muslim and didn't read the Quran first. It's like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
So, have you heard Muslim apologetics?
I have. So I'm very familiar with Islam. Some of the thinkers like Ibn Arabi, Al-Ghazali, and I like the poets like Rumi and Hafiz. You know what I'm saying? They have some deep theology. And Ibn Arabi even has a metaphysics, but it's some kind of monoism where he argues for Islam and he proves Islam in his metaphysics. But
I'm not talking about that, but it's just that I hear a lot of the same, probably the tag argument or the transcendental arguments as sort of like the precursor for Islam. And I find that interesting because the tag arguments don't work. Because, I mean, first off, they just get you to a deity. They don't get you any specific deity.
Yeah.
But I see most of their apologetics, at least that I've run into, or run into online even, starts there. That's how they got my friend. They convinced him on the transcendental argument. And then, I don't know. Then there's steps after that. It's just like, well, once you believe this, now we'll take you to step 2. And
it seems like I know it kind of seems like you're just being a follower, especially when you subscribe to a religion that you don't really understand before you learn it.
Yeah.
And that seems kind of like not a naive to step into something and claim you believe it and not really understand it. But you know what I'm saying? I think what compels a lot of people to turn nowadays is because there's now a resurgence of what they call Sufism, which is like a mystical brand of Islam.
Yeah.
And they're returning to a lot of traditional Muslim thinkers that were Sufi. You know what I'm saying? And so they open it back up to the kind of mystical dimension of Islam because they realize that they need that kind of spiritual dimension added to their religion to revitalize it. Because when you have dead religion and it doesn't have anything, no real tenable spiritual, no real inner understanding, no real deep psychology, you know what I'm saying? If you don't have that understanding that you can take to your religion, then your religion is just you following edicts and dogmas, and it's empty and it's stale, and you'll get tired of it, and it won't be nourishing your soul. You know what I mean?
I see that the Baha'i also seems to be an offshoot that's got some popularity. I don't know if it's growing or not offhand, but I know several people on that. The Baha'i religion.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different religions.
Yeah, it's an offshoot from Muslim. It's not just mystical like Sufi, but it's sort of like a much more kindly, friendly version.
Yeah.
So why do you think that people have a mystical need? I don't see a reason for that. So
why a mystical need?
Yeah, why do you think we need to believe something?
I don't think we have. I don't think it's our need to believe something is necessarily mystical. Because everybody that seeks out spirituality isn't seeking mysticism. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people in religion are against mysticism. You know, there's different points of view.
You define it. I mean, those are just my bad memory words. So,
yeah,
spirituality, or because you said something earlier on that similar to like we have to believe in something.
Not that we don't have to believe in something, but that we have within us an innate kind of impulse to want to believe in something.
Okay, why do you think that's there? Because I think to me, I think that's cultural. Why do you think it's
you could argue it's cultural. You could say, well, it's cultural, but you can find it within most cultures and most civilizations that have been. You know, it's always has been there. And you might, and even though there are movements of atheism within civilizations, even in the past, like I mentioned, there's still a lot of currents of religion and philosophy that were going on at the same time. So there might have been people that didn't believe, but there were also a great number of people who did believe.
Have you ever read anything about the anthropology of religion? The ancient formation of how religion came to be?
A long time ago, but not recently, no.
I think it sounds like you might be really interested in reading something like that. I have a book called Introducing Anthropology of Religion. It's probably on 4th edition now or something, but there's different ones out there.
Yeah,
because that's where to me it seems like that we've had these ancient beliefs for the same reasons that we act superstitiously sometimes, because number one, we want explanations for things, and number two, it's just we get into these habits like baseball players do, right?
Yeah,
they get into these little weird habits because they're only successful at best 3 times out of 10, right? A 300 batting average is wonderful, but that means you fail 7 times. So whenever you're in a less than 50% success rate, you find this in a lot of sports, less in basketball, right? Because you get your baskets at least 50% of the time, if not 70% of the time. So, but you see the superstitious acts in the sports that 10 shots to make 2 in hockey or whatever. So back historically, we have people dreaming of their ancestors, not knowing what dreams were, starting to pray to the mountains and the clouds for storms, and praying to, ancestor worship was a big piece of it, praying to them for good crops or for getting over diseases and things like that. To me, those are like the precursors for religious belief. So I think you'd find Anthropology of Religion. You may want to give that another shot. It would. I don't want to say fill in the gaps because you've got a lot of knowledge, it sounds like. But anyways, it's been nice. Uncle, what I see, Uncle J.E.
Jesse, Uncle Jesse.
Jesse.
Yeah.
I've seen your name go by. Do you do lives?
No, I don't have enough followers. I'm kind of low key. I just get on here and talk a little bit. But I be wanting to talk to atheists because I don't want to be confrontational, and I feel like atheism, it makes sense. You know what I mean? I understand that position, and you know what I'm saying. I've read a lot of atheist thinkers like Nietzsche, Hume, and who else? The existentialist Camus, Sartre.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? I understand the impulse, especially in the modern age, toward atheism. You know what I'm saying? Because so much it flies in the face of belief. You know what I'm saying? Especially with the rise of science and a lot of things that happen in the world makes it hard to believe in God.
Well, if you're that deep into philosophy, I'll make a recommendation here that I usually don't make, because you're more advanced than a lot of people I talk to here. You might want to look into some of the more modern philosophers who are aware of the current scientific knowledge and also do the philosophy. So I'd say probably Daniel Dennett is a good one.
I read him. He wrote something about consciousness, a book about consciousness I read a while ago. And then I seen them talk to Jordan Peterson. But have you heard about how the scientists have discovered that consciousness precedes matter, and it's making them reevaluate their ideas, because there's a lot of materialists that argued against it. But they're realizing through whatever, I don't know what scientific experiments they done, but they're realizing that consciousness precedes matter, and they still have questions about what the nature of consciousness is. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think that's correct, but coming from you, I would want to know where you got that from. So come back sometime, unless you know the references.
Yeah, I don't know the references.
Yeah, come back sometime with that info, and I'd like to see where that's coming from. Because for most people, I would dismiss it, but like I say, you're a little bit you're a bit more well educated, especially on the philosophy side. So
I think I was listening. I didn't get it from a book. I was listening to some neuroscientists who were talking about it.
Ooh, see, now that's even better. I don't hardly listen anymore because my time is more limited, but there's a podcast called the Brain Science Podcast that has neurophysicists and scientists and stuff around. But yeah, if you can remember or find what you listen to, send me a DM or something. I'd love to know what that is, and we can talk about it again.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not aware that any of that is legitimate. But if it's not legitimate, I mean, if it is legitimate, definitely want to know about it. So
yeah.
All right, Jeff, I'm going to scoot on. Thank you so much. This is pretty fascinating. You're a neat guy.
Okay, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation, man. You take it easy.
Keep listening. Keep thinking. Take care.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh, what a neat guy. I'm really interested in learning where he got that conclusion about consciousness preceding matter. I don't think that's even possible, knowing what I do about when matter came to be. And as far as I know, we don't understand consciousness well enough to even know that it could or couldn't, because it just seems like an emergent behavior of physicals. So, but someone who quotes that much philosophy and is that well read, I'm gonna give him a little bit of line. I would like to hear from him about what those are, because I will definitely read that. Okay, Walt Weinhardt, first time caller. I'm just used to this caller thing. Phrasing, I don't know, sorry if that sounds weird to you. And let's see, Daddy Remy. Let's send out those two. See if I heard a distant beep in my ear. Nobody's coming up. Okay. So there's two more here I can go. Missing Dragon. I see you just popped up. And one more. Big Dude 247. So there's four. If nobody comes up, I'll go back and do questions from the comments. So, thank you for the likes, David. Appreciate that. While we're at it, everybody, just tap the screen for some little, heart taps, and we'll get some more followers going on. Please follow if you haven't. Tonight, we're trying to get to 1,800 as I grow this channel. So I need 18 signups tonight. I'm going to actually try to keep going until we get those 18. Although I might do a restart at 2.5 hours just to reboot and get some new people. Okay, nobody has jumped up, so I am going to go for this track, go all the way back to the beginning and answer some questions. I got a couple out at the front, but I've gotten into the habit of not doing the questions up front, because then too many people just sort of move on and you miss some really good people. Let's see. The rate of evolution is higher in Republicans. Their life cycles are faster. I have not heard that. That's an interesting statement. I don't know. See, here's the problem with the statement like that. I guess evolution works on on a level that's like 1,000 generations. So that's, so if we have a 20-year lifespan, like or generation span, like that's how long until you reproduce. Of course, that's moved to like almost 30 now in modern day. So let's just say 25 years, right? 25 times 1,000 generations is 25,000 years. All of written history is only 6,000 years. So while it may be, it's not something that it probably is going to ever be noticeable, and particularly because cultural evolution, the influence of culture on people, is so much more intense than the influence in nature. I mean, we change our environment. Look how much our environment has changed. We have changed it in the last 200 years, right? So that by far outweighs the influence of natural evolution, if you will. So their life cycles are faster. And also, you kind of wonder, it's probably not important. It's just like one thing about conservatism, which is a root factor of republicanism and religious people to a greater degree, is that they are more conservative, which means they prefer comfort and lack and predictability and lack of whatever reduces fear and unknowns, those types of things. So they would like to keep their societies more consistent from generation to generation. And that's sort of an evolutionary recipe for not evolving, right? Because you don't have changes to adapt upon, to select upon. So that would, I would think, tend to go in the other direction, or at least maybe it's a balancing factor. But like I say, in the end, I think the scale is, it's a very interesting concept. I would love to see someone try to take that on with a paper, but you'd probably have to define Republicans as conservatives, because you could define conservatives probably back in history. You can't define Republicans because they're not that old, 100 years old. If no God, then why banana? Checkmate atheists. Yeah, that's funny. That's facetious, of course. Bananas are going extinct. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I saw something about that. Panama disease. There's like a fungus or something that's taken out a lot of banana crops. This is the problem with having monocrops. The two genetically similar, you get a certain ailment that just can wipe out the whole crop. So we need genetic engineering in crop production to make variations that can survive. I think the Bible is written for entertainment purposes alone. I don't know. That's interesting. That's a question for. I'd like to get a response from Josh Bowen on something like that. What were they doing back then? Were they just like writing about their supernatural stories, just like back in the time of Beowulf or something like that, or did they actually think these things were happening? We all know the Bible came together over many, many years, and it was never intended to be a single book and all that stuff.